Hey guys, I'm making another Lost Ark video, this time going over what the game is like at the end of the first part of the endgame, which is Tier 1. The best way to describe how this game plays at endgame is that it's basically if Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, WoW, and Diablo had a love child. If that sounds interesting to you, watch this video to see what the content has and if it will be enjoyable. I'm mostly going to compare this game to other MMOs at the start of endgame and how the game plays compared to other MMOs out there. So let's get right into it. Okay, first up, the biggest thing you'll notice after hitting the endgame is just how massive, confusing, and interesting the systems and world is in this game. Compared to MMOs like SWTOR, WoW, and WoW Classic, Lost Ark almost feels like a completely different game in terms of what you can do. Whilst leveling, it's easy to feel like the game is a generic MMO and that you just run around, quest, and go from zone to zone to get your stuff done. Then the game comes in and hits you with a haymaker of systems that improve your character, but these systems also feel daunting. Just a number of things you have to do at endgame are islands, story missions, abyssal dungeons, chaos dungeons, guardian raid, the tower, and then doing these things on an alt to get the most mats that you can funnel into your main. It's a lot of new systems, and that doesn't even get into the market, shop, stronghold, and gear honing aspect of the game, which you need to utilize. All that being said, there's really not any part of the endgame that isn't enjoyable, and that's mostly due to how fun the combat is in this game, on top of the game making you feel like you're making meaningful progress. There's nothing like doing one island mission, saving some seagulls, and receiving like 1,000 shards and 20,000 harmony fragments. On top of that, the islands have some of the most interesting points in the story than the actual main story, at least in my opinion. So while there is a lot to do, the game manages to keep it fresh by always making progress available. Just make sure to look up guides on the internet or you will be completely lost. Next up, I wanted to dive deeper into the combat, which is one of the biggest highlights of the game. Just like other isometric games, the effects can be insane because of the top-down view that gives verticality to the combat, so a lot of the effects are really nuts. There are so many dang explosions that a lot of the time you won't see anything in a party, although you can turn party effects down. The crazy ability effects and downright brutality of set abilities really makes the game feel fun to press abilities. On top of that, smashing through hordes of mobs is something MMOs typically can't accomplish, as there would be too much screen clutter. But the isometric view really allows the game to showcase massive combat comparable to games like Diablo. Outside of the effects and visual awesomeness, the combat, although capped at mostly 10-ish abilities depending on the class, is actually very fluid, at least with the classes that I've played. The Striker, Shadowhunter, and Berserker are all different, but definitely have a nice flow to them while maintaining their differences. Striker, for example, is very fast and fluid, following a builder and spender type of combat, similar to a rogue from WoW with combo points, minus the energy mechanic. And usually, classes don't really have to worry about things like energy and mana like other classes, or other MMOs rather. Instead, you can freely use your abilities to your heart's content. This allows combat to feel unhindered, fast, and fun. On top of that, the way the combat feels for each class can change dramatically based on their class engraving, which can be comparable to a watered down spec in terms of WoW. For example, the Shadowhunter's class engraving can allow them to build their meter to go into demon form more often, whereas their second class engraving makes it so that they can't go into their demon form at all, but makes their human form damage stronger. These class engravings, although different in skills, rotation, and such, also build different secondary stats, which also change how the class plays. For example, if we go back to the Shadowhunter with the stronger demon form build, specialization becomes a must-have stat to build up your meter faster to allow you to get into your demon form quicker. However, this will force you to lack stats like swiftness, which increases your attack speed and movement speed, as well as reducing the cooldown on abilities. And this is the case for a lot of classes. For example, this is true for both Striker and Berserker, where one build requires specialization and another build doesn't. So the game usually offers you two different styles for each class, where you either hit harder and slower, or hit less hard but attack a lot faster. Luckily, the balancing team for Lost Ark is very good, so usually you can choose to play either class engraving and still have success, which is true for Berserker, where their Mayhem build was buffed and offers a faster pace with a permanent Berserker mode for all the angry boys out there. So all in all, the combat is fun, fast, and hard hitting, while also being incredibly awesome looking and diverse. Now let's talk about what you will be doing at endgame, especially with the 2 free level boosts that you get. The game heavily relies on alts to make the most progress that you can, so thankfully Smilegate gave us free level boosts to help us out. And while we can get 2 free level boosts, we can also boost characters via our stronghold using gold, which is another way that Smilegate helped us out. So if you have hit max level with a class that you don't like, or at least want to try something else out, don't worry, this game has your back. So the basic things you'll need to do across all your characters if you want to get the baseline advantage of having multiple characters, you'll want to do your Abyss Dungeon, your Chaos Dungeon, and the Guardian Raids on all your characters. And while this may seem like a lot, the game does have up to a 5-day grace period for each character to do their daily missions. So for example, you can choose to play your alts every other day so you can do their content and get double rewards for the days you missed. This is typically what I do, where basically I spend 1 day on my main doing daily and weekly quests, islands, storylines, and my dungeon, and then the next day I do all the fun content like the Abyss Dungeons and Guardian Raids on my alts. Now, if you're trying to do more, you'll want to do all the content I said before, as well as the daily and weekly quests, stronghold missions, and get your alts gear leveled up. Luckily, when your main hits the next tier of loot, like tier 2 while your alts are all tier 1, the stronghold allows you to then increase your honing success chance on your gear, as well as the honing material cost reduction, so that you can catch up your alts a lot quicker than your main took to get to the next tier of content. Then you can funnel one alt with all the mats until he hits tier 2, and then repeat the process until all your alts are tier 2. It is important to note, however, that while it's easy to switch mains now, the deeper and deeper we get into the content, the harder it will be to change mains. So while you're playing multiple characters now, try to figure out which one you have the most fun with. Then you can funnel that character to the maximum item level available. Next, we can talk about the actual content, and man, is it really fun to do. So first up, let's talk about the basic things you'll be doing on a daily basis, which are the daily quests, Chaos Dungeon, and Guardian Raid. Daily quests are what you can imagine. You accept 3 of them from your menu, and then they send you off to do various missions around the world. Luckily, you can pick from a large list of dailies to choose which you want to do, and while it can be inconvenient to travel around the world, people often use their Bifrost to travel to the location of the dailies that they typically do. For those that don't know, Bifrost essentially allows you to go to a location, save it to your character so that you can basically teleport there anytime you want. And while dailies aren't the most fun, they're always quick and easy to do. And now that we've got the daily quests taken care of, let's talk about the Chaos Dungeons, which will be familiar to those who have done Rifts and Diablo. These are essentially just mob hordes that you explode until you kill 2,000 mobs. While this may seem like a lot, there are a metric buttloads of mobs, so it usually only takes a few minutes to get through the Chaos Dungeon. Just like with your dailies, this activity is fast, gives tons of rewards, as well as is super fun. Because the combat in this game is amazing, getting to have a few minutes of destroying a couple thousand mobs is basically therapy. You can also do this twice per day per character, but like I said, you don't have to do it each day, as you can have up to a 5-day grace period. And now that we're done with that, let's talk about another activity to do per day, which is the Guardian Raid. This time, however, instead of killing hordes of mobs, you're only killing one, and that one mob is a boss. And oh man, these can get tough with pugs, especially at higher item levels. These have mechanics that are quite punishing, so doing a little research goes a long way for successful runs. And this tech activity is where a challenge can happen, so if you're looking for a challenge, here it is. You also only have 5 potions to use, unless you run all the way to the start to refresh your stock. So you have to be extremely careful on a lot of the mechanics in the Guardian Raids. And if you die, your entire team only has 3 deaths, and after that, no one respawns and you might wipe. This activity can take like 10 minutes each, so I often don't do these on all my characters in one day unless I have a lot of time on my hands. But Guardian raids do give good rewards, so you should do them on all your characters. And this is a super fun part of the endgame. Overcoming some of the later bosses can be quite rewarding on their own, especially if you're in an uncoordinated group. Now we can talk about the Abyssal Dungeons, which are basically harder versions of the dungeons that you were doing while leveling. And when I say harder, I mean harder. Again, doing this with a pug will be extremely hard, and you'll have to explain mechanics, which requires research. These have one-shot mechanics for each boss, so not understanding the mechanics means you won't pass the dungeon. So I recommend getting friends in Discord that you can learn these with, which will allow you to make this go a lot smoother. Out of the 3 activities that I mentioned, the Abyssal Dungeon will take a while, unless you have a good group. While these can take like 15 minutes with a group that doesn't wipe, hugging an Abyssal Dungeon can take up to 2 hours, and I know that from experience. So all in all, Abyssal Dungeons are one of my favorite parts of the game because I like that difficulty. So one thing you might have picked up on is that the endgame in Lost Ark isn't brain dead easy like a lot of games. Unlike games like WoW, this game offers difficulty early, rather than just in the heroic and mythic raiding scene. If you enjoy a challenge, this game might be right up your alley. However, if you don't want to have to push through all that endgame content, this game offers a lot of meaningful ways to progress. There are world bosses, islands, weekly quests, ghost ships, and a lot more that are usually pretty simple to do, but fun as well as giving tons of good rewards. One of my favorite things to do are the island quests, which give insane, and I mean it when I say insane, rewards. You only do them once, but islands offer some of the most unique and funny quests in the game and properly reward you for your time. And after that, you can do the collectibles like Makoko seeds, giant hearts, masterpieces, and island tokens, which all strengthen your character. So, all in all, this game will offer you many ways to make meaningful progress on your characters. All in all, this game is great. You will have challenging, rewarding, and fun experiences, and hopefully never be bored. Whether it's playing alts or pushing the endgame, you will have so many options open to you. So please try this game out. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe as it will help me out a lot. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to get more content out for you guys very soon.